In another interview, you had mentioned that 5 years ago, everyone told me to pick a lane. And yet, looking at your journey, which I love so much, you spent a decade in modeling to different internships from fashion, magazine, consulting, tech, and you never really picked that lane. So I'm curious for someone who's listening in who might also feel like, I don't fit in that traditional career path. What would you say to them? And why do you think that actually might be a good thing?
Yeah, I think if I think back to throughout my educational years in college, nothing gave me more anxiety than trying to pick a lane and figuring out like what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I remember going into like these little conferences of women in consulting or banking, and I would sit there and I was like, oh my gosh, this does not resonate with me. Like, what in the world am I going to do? And I remember sitting at like my thesis end of year class for my economics major, and every girl went around. I went to an all women's school, and they said, what's next for you? And every woman was doing something incredible, Amazon, Google, Citibank, and just like, I'm starting my own consulting company. And I could just see the look on the professor's face, like, what does this girl think she has to offer anybody? And from there, I had so much experience doing a little bit of everything. And I remember working with brands in the modeling industry and just seeing all of these people to come together to make a campaign or an advertisement. And I wanted to give that back to artists who had created a fabulous product, if it was fashion, beauty, or like developing an app, and just like bring them into, a national or global stage and would help them with press and marketing and social media and photo shoots. And I remember mentors and family members still asking me like, okay, but like, what are you going to do with that? Like, how in the world do you scale that? So I think like advice to younger self is I'm so happy I didn't feel obligated to pick a lane, because I think when you are an entrepreneur, you have to wear so many hats because you can't afford to hire anyone in the early days. And it was such a blessing that I got to work in so many different industries and take that experience and put it into my own company.
I love that. And I so appreciate the confidence you had so early because I was one of those women that you were next to who sat in the banking sessions and I got a job in banking and then I moved to tech. Like it wasn't until right when I hit 30 when I left everything and I was like, you know what? F all this. I never found my lane. Like I'm going to start my own company. But where do you think that confidence really comes from? So young, you wanted to start your consulting business. Were you helping businesses in college? Like where do you think that really came from?
Yeah. In all honesty, it was not out of confidence. It was out of fear.
Mm,
I was so fearful out nobody would hire me. And I think that was just insecurity in my mind and being a young woman thinking like I didn't have any value to give a company if it was banking, consulting, tech. So instead of putting myself out there to be rejected by somebody else, I was like, okay, well, I can't fire me. So I'll just start something. Someone has to pay me for something I know. And throughout college, I had put modeling on hold, but I had all of these contacts from the industry. And they would reach out to me saying, I need a little help with a photo shoot or social media. And I started taking these clients and treating them like my own brand and almost felt like a co-founder in their companies. I certainly wasn't compensated for it, but I had
yeah.
such a passion to help these people grow. And, I don't think it was until meeting my co-founder that she made me realize that I was meant to start my own brand.
I love that. And I love that you said, you were taking on these clients. And even though you weren't making a ton of money, it was such invaluable experience for you to be like really hands on for this future business that you didn't even know existed in your life path. So I love all that. And it's actually so interesting that you mentioned didn't apply for those jobs because of the fear of being rejected. And I'm sure fast forward today in entrepreneurship, there is so much rejection. So have you kind of evolved around that and the fear around rejection? I'd love to hear that because so many women don't even start that business because they're scared of being rejected in whatever way that might come in.
Yeah, what's crazy to like in retrospect, my journey in the modeling industry, that is like between that and acting, that is like total rejection. I mean, you
Mm,
show up to
mhm.
10 castings a day and everybody says no. So you think I would have grown like a harder skin to that, but I think in that world, all it had to do with was my appearance. It had nothing to do with like substance of like what I actually came to bring as talent. So, fast forward to graduating from college. I didn't have that confidence, and I was so fearful of rejection. And I really took it personally when we started Phase It. I remember like prepping for investor calls or retail meetings in those early days, and it really took a toll on me and what I thought I had to bring, and thought like, oh, like maybe we're not, I don't know, capable or well suited enough to like be the founders of these brands. And I remember these people always asking us like, why you? Like, why are you the person to start this? And you're like thinking, you're like, okay, well, I have no corporate experience. Like, I don't like, and you try to craft a story in your head why you're the right person, but like, it doesn't really matter. Like, if you're starting it, like, you are the right person. Like, what? They're going to fill your role with somebody else.
Hmm.
So I think that confidence has come over time. I mean, to be frank, I think it's something I'm working on personally, of not allowing like work to be tied to like the value of
Yeah.
who I am. And I think a lot of women struggle with that. And unfortunately, it did take a celebrity to put us on this global stage with our company for me to really feel like I am the person to do this. We are building something amazing. I am so confident. I things have completely changed now. But I think if I were to talk to my younger self, it would be, you are the person to do this. Like, walk into that room of confidence. The fact that you are just doing it and took that step to start
Yeah.
is more than most people have done or are willing to do.
It's so true. And so much before Phase It, you started earlier, right? You had this consulting business. And I'm just curious because it's so different being on the sidelines, supporting other brands. I'm sure there's so many lessons you took from that of what to do, maybe what not to do. So is there anything that really pops out to you from that experience in your life?
Yeah, I think in the early days with Nina, my co-founder, she handles most of the operations and manufacturing side of the business, and I'm the front end of everything. And I remember you talk to these manufacturers in the early days, and they have certain minimum order quantities that they want you to order. And they try and pitch you on the largest amount, so 100,000 units, and we couldn't afford that. And I remember learning from my previous clients of the way you go out of business is overbuying,
Yeah.
right? You need to test, you need to see if there's product market fit, if there's even a customer, because if that product flops, you're stuck with all this inventory and you're out of a business, really. So that was probably the first lesson. I think the second is staying lean. I remember watching all these tech companies fundraise so much, have these insane valuations. They would rent these fabulous office spaces in New York City, and they would hire so many people. And all of a sudden, a year later, they're having to fundraise again. So it was really important to Nina and I to keep our team lean and scrappy, and to not just get ahead of ourselves. Even today, post Taylor Swift and the retailers we're at, and being a multi-million dollar company, we are still super lean and not over hiring, and just not getting ahead of ourselves, because you never know what the future holds.
It's so true. And before you guys even started Phase It, tell me more about how you met Nina, who you mentioned was your co-founder. I think she was like building the skincare brand in her dorm and you guys coincidentally met. And I'd love to just kind of hear that meeting and what you saw in her and maybe the brand that she was first building.
It's so funny because I feel like so many co-founders meet because they're friends, and they like have this idea together. They pitch their friend to like, oh, jump along the ride for me, or you meet at work. For Nina and I graduated from Barnard College of Columbia University, and Nina was at NYU in New York. And a mutual friend said, "You're the only two people I know starting your own thing out of college. You guys should probably meet." So met Nina down at the Wing, which was this women only membership club that she was a part of. And she was building her first skincare company called Labruna Skincare. It was a clean, luxurious, topical skincare brand that we called Food for Your Face. Early days before clean skincare really had, this big bubble. And, I remember trying her products. I knew nothing about clean beauty, and I took them home. I'm like, wow, these are so luxurious. I'm super obsessed. She was so informative about the science of making sure what you're putting on your skin is as nutritious as what you're putting inside of your body. And her background was in nutrition. And I remember like wanting to work for her for free. I was like writing all these notes in a notepad. I had all of these crazy ideas. And I came back to her and I was like, we're going to rebrand. We're going to get you into retail. We're going to like really make this something big. And within that first year, we had a rebrand. We launched into Nordstrom's. We sold out in 24 hours. With Nina, I saw that she was incredibly creative. I remember asking her if she'd ever tried like a Chick-fil-A chicken nugget or if she knew a celebrity. And she was had knew nothing about pop culture, which is the magic of Nina. She's like just so in her own tunnel, which is, I think, where the most creative people thrive from. They're not looking to see whatever anyone else is doing. They're just building something completely new and innovating. And I think that's, where Nina has been an incredible co-founder, and her ability to just figure things out, of figuring out manufacturing, how to source ingredients, really understanding the operations of a company.
Which isn't easy for sure. And, major props also to you coming in 1 year, like selling out, getting into a big retailer for such young women, like right out of school. How did you get into your first retailer that quickly?
Our strength is we're so scrappy. I said we're the queen of cold emails. I mean, I am an internet sleuth and like I will find you. And I would I tried so many strategies to find these buyers. I found them on LinkedIn, I would find their emails, but then I'd find them on Instagram and I would see everyone important that they are following. And I would send product to those people. So these buyers would see at the time Labruna skincare, and we've done this for Fazit too, everywhere. So our mentality was like, we'll try anything until it happens. We had no experience. Neither of us had come from beauty backgrounds. I mean, for me, it was just being on set with beauty companies. And for Nina, it was formulating products, but we never had like that actual expertise to take in from a larger company.
And I love that because like it sounds so simple, but so many people do not put themselves out there and cold email and stalk and go through everything. And, funny enough, which we'll talk about Phase It in a little bit, like you said, you've been practicing these stalking abilities and getting in front of people, which have helped you in your future business and to get it to celebrities' hands. So I love that you guys, not being in the beauty industry, were really hands-on. And again, talking about rejection, which we started with, I'm sure you got no responses to many of those emails, right? And I'm sure that didn't stop you.
Yeah, no, it didn't stop us. And even beyond that, like we would actually get intro calls with these mega retailers and we would like prepare for this pitch. We thought we did a great job. They were so excited. But I think they could tell how like young the brand was and like wasn't ready to be like on, that level of like mass market. And then they would ghost us and we're like, oh my God, like we thought we did such a great job. Like what happened here? But timing is also everything. And I remember, someone in the industry I was talking to about a year and a half ago. I was on a panel with him and he said, my young advice to you would have been you should have gone and learned all the lessons and mistakes on someone else's dollar at a big beauty company. And maybe he's right. And maybe we would have gotten to where we wanted to go a little bit quicker. But honestly, I think the fact that Nina and I have made the mistakes, know how to run a lean and scrappy team and company, and have been profitable and showed exponential growth. I don't know. I think we figured it out ourselves.
Yeah. And I mean, there's so many takeaways you can have by, working at a bigger company on someone else's dime, but that doesn't teach you how to build something from literal scratch. So the fact that you did it so early and you guys made the mistakes in different businesses, I think is amazing. And my husband like dropped out of college and started a business so young. I'm like, I wish I did that. Like, I wish I did, because honestly, the experience you get is just starting, like falling on your face, figuring it out. At some point, it's going to work out. So I love the school of hard knocks and just being scrappy, because the real life is like kind of how you learn. So
Yeah, but there's so many sacrifices that go with it. I mean, I did have, somewhat of a safety net of savings for the first 2 years, and thank God my boyfriend came around and supported me for
yeah.
the 2 years afterwards, because there's so much sacrifice. Your friends are climbing a corporate ladder and they're feeling security of getting raises and bonuses and buying homes and moving into nicer apartments or homes. And I'm sitting there like, I have no money, not a dollar to my name, but we like had such a belief in ourselves that like we are going to make this happen.
I love that you said that, because even, and I'm curious to get your thoughts about this now, like fast forwarding into years of in your business, like there's still sacrifices that we make every single day, and the money is tied in the business and you just continue to
Hmm.
reinvest. So like going back to like the lives we live, it's just, I feel like as entrepreneurs, you're always making sacrifices, but it's worth it, I feel like.
Yeah, and I felt that this year finally. But I think as an entrepreneur, you're also so obsessed with what you're
Yeah.
doing that like the sacrifice, like, I don't know, to buy a new pair of sneakers
Yeah.
or to go on vacation with my friends. it didn't hurt because it's like I love what I do so much that I was like, I'll get there one day. Like we'll all
Mhm.
celebrate together one day.
100%. And I think you need that, or else business is going to be real difficult for you if you don't have that passion, because you're going to be miserable. So I love that. I love what you
Yeah, and I think
mentioned.
in the early days as well, like I remember Nina and I being like, we're gonna fundraise in order to like have like a venture-backed business that we can pay ourselves, and this is gonna be quick money. And then 2 years later, we're like, oh, there's no money. Like they're like, you're not paying yourselves. Like you are struggling. So I think when people are starting a business, it's important to realize like there is going to be a long period of time where you are having to sacrifice and that you're not reaping the benefits immediately.
100%. I know. I mean, even for us, we're not self-funded, but when we were beginning to hire, the business was growing. Like me and my co-founder didn't pay ourselves, but we would just keep hiring people, right? And I was like, oh, now I know why people raise money, because then you get a salary, you can hire all the people you want. I mean, it's a path we decided not to go down for different reasons, but I was like, oh, it's very different when you're self-funded, because every growth you hire someone and then you are not getting paid for a very long time, or like the CEO is the least paid person, but that's a
Hmm.
decision that you make because you want to invest in the asset and continue to build. And like you said, like you're so passionate about it. Like all I want to do is hire people who are part of the mission, and it's worth all the sacrifice to
Right.
make that impact. So, going back to this first business that you guys were working together on, it seems like things are going well. So kind of what happened, what pivoted, and what really sparked the idea for Phase It?
Yeah, no, Labruna Skincare was doing super well. I mean, it was self-funded again, and it was super luxurious and clean. It was an expensive business to run, and we were doing well, but I felt like retailers always wanted like that something new, that like marketing buzzword, and like our products were just like so good, and like our retention rate for customers was like 80%, which is wild for a business. But I guess we just weren't like marketing and buzzy enough to really break through. And even though we were performing well at retailers, it was just hard to figure out like what was next. Like I couldn't see Labruna necessarily at a Sephora or Ulta. It was just very niche, very feminine, very luxe. So Nina came to me and was like, this is during COVID. She's like, we should start something 50-50 together. Because at the time I was just a partner in Labruna Skincare and a consultant. I was like, I don't know. Actually, I was like, I don't really know about this. I was like, I don't plan on ever starting my own thing. And she was like, come on, like, we need something to do during COVID, and this could be fun. And like, maybe it's like totally different. Maybe it's like mass market and the price is accessible. And she's like, I've been trying out these things called hydrocolloid patches, and I just think it'd be really cool to use patches, like dermal patches, as the topical method of applying skincare. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. So we started playing around with TikTok that had really just launched and creating a bit of a digital community around acne care, people who were struggling with bumps and blemishes, and really trying to like rewrite the narrative of being confident in your own skin, progress over perfection. And we launched our first product. It got probably over 30 million views on TikTok, and
Amazing.
it was amazing. But our website looked like it was launched in the year 2000. We just like we had no resources to really like make it look like a real brand. But in the early days, we had meetings with CVS, we had meetings with Walmart. People were like, "Oh, you guys are really onto something." But I think deep down they probably saw that like we didn't have enough resources to like, make it win on shelves. So we kept innovating in the dermal patch space. We launched ingrown hair patches, acne scar patches, and we're really first of the kind of breaking into new categories and creating these very accessible, effective products. And about a year and a half ago, Nina comes to me and our board advisor and says, I've been trying these makeup patches that are like these like little sparkly freckles that come across your face, and like I kind of wear them around LA and people stop me and are obsessed, and I just think this is really cool. And the advisor and I look at each other and are like, how in the world does this fit into like what we're currently building?
Interesting.
Like this is not acne care, skincare. Like this makes zero sense. How are we going into cosmetics right now? And we trusted her. We're like, you know what, Nina, if you're getting that much commentary on the streets, like let's just launch this. So in April of 2024, Coachella weekend 2, we pre-launched the first ever makeup patches. We sent to a few production samples to friends going to Coachella. We didn't have the packaging yet. We didn't have the right form. We didn't have our logo on it. And a few of them made some content. I think got 20 million views.
On
We
their
sell out
content or
on
your
their content that we repost. It sells out in 7 days. We did not even have product in the warehouse yet. And we knew
oh
this was
shoot.
like the next big thing for Fazit.
That's huge. And so just going back to the timeline, 2020, Nina comes to you to start this business. You're kind of hesitant. What really put you across that finish line? Because you're like, I don't know if I want to start a business. And then you clearly went all in. So like, what really allowed you to feel comfortable to take that risk? Was it kind of a side project that you're like, oh, I'll just do it with
Yeah.
her?
No, it was a side project. I had all my consulting clients still, which was my main focus, and our other skincare company was still my main focus. And this was just a little creative outlet. I'd come to the city. I was living in Florida at the time. We'd meet up, we'd work a little bit on it, and then I was like, "Oh, this is fun! Like I'm getting to be like super creative in this new project." You know, unlike Labruna Skincare, which was her baby, this is equally our passion project together. And then quickly it just like started like there was a little bit of traction at a time. And every time you feel traction,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, like that felt good. Like, let's keep going. And then you become utterly obsessed.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what you said around those like milestones in the early days, and they could be very small, but like you have a little bit of
Smallest.
traction, right? But it's like, oh, you're onto something. And then you get maybe 10 people stopping you on the street, just as an example. And then, so I love that you were kind of following those breadcrumbs while still kind of maintaining, your income with consulting clients and other things. And so tell me, in those early days, you guys, I believe, self-funded it. So tell me more about kind of your fundraising journey, what you learned, what didn't work, and what you guys did.
Yeah, so Nina and I put together $13,000 that we had in order to create the first product, get a little bit of inventory, hire my best friend who has been our graphic designer, and she created the first prototype of the product. And from there, we're like, we are fundraising. We keep hearing all these sexy stories of these women raising $5 million pre-seed, no product yet. We're going to do that. That sounds fabulous. Like, this is the quick way to success. And we probably had 100 VC calls, and every guy was like, I don't get it. No, what's your experience? This doesn't have enough traction. It was really like chicken before the egg. Like people wanted you to come to them with a really innovative idea in order to fundraise, but then they're like, all right, what are the sales? What's the traction? What are the metrics here? So we were super confused and we kept taking those calls, feeling super defeated. And one of those calls led to this man saying, I know of an incubator program out in St. Louis, Missouri. Why don't you just pitch them and see what happens? And I don't know. I don't win anything ever. So I was like, I'm not going to win a pitch competition. Like, this is not, also, I am so fearful of public speaking. Like, this is not going well. So luckily during COVID, you're doing everything over
Oh,
video call, which
amazing.
was like, all right, Win, I'll have my whole script up and I'll just like read off the script. So we pitched to them. I was so frightened. I have all these guys asking me all these financial questions about consumer product goods, and I was like, I don't know any of this. And it was really like a 101 of VC finance for Nina and I in those like early like 6 to 8 months. We kept getting callbacks of this pitch competition. And then finally they're like, oh, so you're like a finalist. You have to come to St. Louis, Missouri for 2 weeks. And it's an 8-week program. You'll do the first 6 weeks virtually, and then we'll all come together and do this program. We'll give you $50,000. So that was a huge win. We're like, $50,000? That is a lot of money. Like, this is crazy. And and for everyone to know, like a stat is it takes $1 million like of fundraising for a beauty brand to really like get off their feet. So we had that first fundraise, and then we reached out to a few angel investors that were in our network. They wrote us like $10,000 check, so we had $60,000. From there, we were able to expand our inventory and product offerings. We started innovating in the dermal patch space for the first ever ingrown hair patch and the first ever acne scar patch. And from there, we really started getting traction. Urban Outfitters picked us up. Our online social media presence was booming. We had a few press features, and then we ran out of money. And we're like, okay, what in the world do we do next? So we went out to more VCs, had some huge ones totally getting what we're doing, but we weren't doing enough in revenue and they declined. So we went back to our network and started raising through angel investors, getting a few like five to $10,000 checks here and there. And then we raised, I think, about $175,000. This was like about a year later after the incubator program. And that is really what allowed us to really bring the branding up to where we wanted it to be, launch the makeup patches. And that was the last time we ever fundraised.
Amazing. Well, no, I so appreciate you kind of walking through all of that, and very cool that the accelerator, was it also helpful from like a business perspective? Did you learn anything that was monumental in those early
Yeah,
days?
100%. I really think it created a lot of structure for Nina and I that we didn't have experience in a corporate setting, of having, and we're bi-coastal, so Nina's in LA and I'm in New York. So having these constant like Monday, Wednesday, Friday check-ins, learning how to set up a profit and loss statement, how to track cash flow, like a lot of things that we had no experience. And it's really important for a founder to at least have a basic understanding of everything until you can hire a CFO.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, still in those early days, like you mentioned, you were still scrappy, you didn't have a lot of money. What were really driving those sales? You mentioned social media. Was that the main driver in those early days?
Yeah, we did no paid ads probably for the first year and a half. It was all TikTok, and all brand awareness. And we just really we pitched to people that we had really cracked the code on virality and social media. And we didn't even hire influencers or content creators. It was all Nina and I. And we would do a lot of, seeding, which was just like gifting to influencers with no strings attached. And the products really resonated with them, and people would organically post about it.
And I love this question. I feel I'm really passionate about content. We do a lot of content. So whenever I see that other women and their businesses are, started with organic content as a foundation, I always love to ask, like, tell us more about how much content were you doing? Was it once a day? Because I think even to this day, it's important. So I always love to kind of see what was the discipline and the regimen in those early days.
Yeah, I mean, those early days was like throwing spaghetti against the wall.
Yeah,
Like, it's like
exactly.
that we like we should delete everything in the past. But it was really just like throwing up something, having an idea, filming it, throwing it up there, reposting content creator. So I would say like once a day, but it was really, I think, impactful content. Like for us, the nature of our product is you're peeling and seeing these before and after results, in the matter of a few seconds on screen. So it was super graphic. I mean, people, it was a dopamine rush. It's like watching, not to be gross, but like watching somebody pop a pimple. People actually love to watch that. There is like scientifically like dopamine release when you watch something come out of the body. So we were kind of playing with that psychology with social, and the patch peels would go viral. And we wanted to apply that same strategy to our product development and our content strategy with the makeup patches, right? Like you have clean skin, you put a patch on, and now you reveal this like statement bold makeup look in the matter of, 30 seconds.
And I love what you said about product development. So were you guys also using social to test potential inventory? Because I know we mentioned, one of the biggest learnings you had working with others was not overbuying inventory. So tell us more about what you guys would do on social for product development.
Yeah, I mean, because again, we were a small company, the eyeballs on you are not many. So you have the freedom to really test. And if it doesn't work, scratch that, we're moving on. And that's always been the way that Nina and I have approached things is, yeah, we'll put a lot of energy and time into it, maybe not a ton of money. We'll test a product. If we feel like it's resonating, we'll keep pushing that product. And for us, one of our big failures was this acne silicone scar patch. It was the cheapest and most effective way to flatten raised acne scars. People who had cystic acne would go get laser treatments and really, really invasive treatments that were incredibly expensive, or trying to use all of these different like chemical peels at home. And it is like really the only thing that like works the fastest. We're like, oh my God, this is such a hit. This is just gonna like change the game for us. No one buys it. And we're like, okay, instead of like trying to push something
Oh,
that we
love it.
already know is not working, we're done. We're moving on. Next product. And then the bikini line ingrown hair patch was like a success for us. And the same thing with makeup patches now. Like we have a design that maybe doesn't become the best seller. Okay, we're not putting paid media towards it. we're not going to keep pushing it. There's no product market fit. You move on to the next product. And really important to like stay in tune with your community as to what they want. And what we realize with makeup patches, we'll have the community being like, we want this certain color, like we want rose gold, and dropping a limited edition rose gold, and people get so excited. So keeping them a part of the brand and humanizing the brand.
Yes, I love it. I love how you guys pivot quick. And I also think when you are a small brand, it's actually so beautiful because like you said, no one's really watching you. So you can throw something up, get their feedback. I remember when we launched, everyone's like, "Are you going to throw like a big launch party and big hype around it?" I was like, "No, we're actually like we're still in like product market fit phase. We're like, is it going to work? Let's put it out there." So similar to you, we really built that on content, and we were open. Like, if this is not going to work, we'll just pivot. So we don't need to do a massive splash. Like, it's nice to be small sometimes to do different things. So, no, that's amazing. And so shortly after you mentioned, the makeup patches, the sparkly freckles were really something big. Tell me more before you got into the hands of Taylor Swift, which I'd love for you to walk through that story. Was that already a main big seller for you guys? Like, how was attraction for that? You mentioned Coachella was big. So,
Yeah, we ordered 100,000 units split between gold and silver. We sold out of them in a week with this
wow.
viral video. And I think like looking back, it was we're disrupting a new category. No one had seen that. And I think the content of watching someone peel makeup off their face really got people and was really sensational. And I think walking into festival season was just like the perfect demographic for our customer, and as well as like summer concerts and being outside. So that was a massive win. And I think it was such a freeing feeling to be like, okay, all right, something has like really worked
Sure.
organically.
Mm.
And that whole summer was full of viral moments, and Nina and I planning of what's next. And we launched a limited edition rose gold color. And shortly after, just started expanding the product line quite quickly. I think now we probably have like 10 makeup patch
Oh, wow.
SKUs, and it hasn't even been a year since we launched the makeup patches.
I love hearing stories like this. Like, I've had, gosh, I don't even know how many women on this podcast, 300, 400. And it's a good reminder that, you can launch with a business with one product, a second product, and that might not be your hero product. And the third or fourth in a different category, like you guys, might be the one that really blows up your business. Like, I hear that time
Yeah,
and time again, even with close friends who have,
interesting.
yeah, massive businesses. And I'm like, oh, there was a world before your eyeliner. And she's like, yeah, that was my fourth product. And that was what took us like over the moon. So it's just always fun. So if anyone's listening, like just keep trying different things and tweaking, and, you could hit that moment. And, I'm curious, it feels like also when that product came out, like you said, the timing of everything was really there. What do you think were some of the, I don't like to say lucky factors, but like variables that really hit to get that to go viral and like a whole nother level?
Yeah, we had spent probably 8 months of rebranding before then.
Oh, interesting.
And that was a lot of no newness coming out. Our resources were being put towards, I think we launched Phase It originally during this whole like Gen Z aesthetic, which we were leaning into something that wasn't us. And like that wasn't my co-founder and I. And we were like, if we want to keep pushing this company, we need to feel like it resonates with us. And right now it like doesn't feel like us. So we went through this whole rebrand. And when it came out, we were like so proud of it. We're like, wow, like I'm actually excited to share this with my friends. Like this feels like me. And that was probably the first thing. The second was laying the foundation of slowly building this team to support us. And by team, like it doesn't have to be full-time employees, but like we had a social media strategist. We so much trusted and was able to delegate and let her tackle more work. We had virtual assistants who were there for technical issues and customer service. We finally got a 3PL, which is a warehouse that ships the product before Nina was packaging it at her own apartment herself. So really like we slowly laid this groundwork and had a little bit of a strategy of like around festival season. And I think all of those like building blocks combined allowed us to like have a stronger launch. At the same time, our inventory was late. We were supposed to get this for the first weekend of Coachella, so we felt like we missed out on that. We didn't have real samples to send people. So we're like, oh, here we are again, like not doing like a real proper launch. So I think it's the balance of like trying to do as much as you can, but at the same time, like don't hold yourself or the brand back because the timing is not perfect, right? Just like let it go and
Oh,
like see what the world has to say about it.
oh my gosh, it's so true. In inventory, there's always delays. I'm like, what?
Always,
Always delays.
always.
So tell us more about, I know you had a strategy. You were talking about your first business, the skincare brand, how, you got into the hands of retailers, how you cold called. Tell us more about Taylor Swift, how you got it on there. I know you've shared it multiple times, but it still gives
Yeah.
me so many goosebumps because I just love everything that went in even before it. So
Yeah, it's so funny because I always say, I said this in this podcast, like I don't win a competition, like I don't
that's
consider
true.
myself like a lucky person. Things never come like easy to me. Like I remember my brother was like so much smarter than I was in school and like didn't study and got an A and I'm like working my butt off to get the A. And I think I see that in myself now of like luck doesn't happen. Like there's so much behind. Yeah, there's luck and there's strategy, and there's timing, but for this, it was completely strategy. And we, Taylor Swift was just finishing up the European leg of her Eras tour. I'm not sure if she had announced yet there was going to be a North America tour at this point, but I was just trying to get it in the hands of Swifties that I knew, like I have friends who were flying to Europe to go see the concert because it was less expensive than in the US previously. And I was like, this product, these sparkly glitter freckles, they stay on for like 1 to 3 days. She could sweat. It could be raining. She could go
Interesting.
swimming in this. Like she could perform in this. Like Taylor Swift needs this product. Like she is in her like bejeweled, bedazzled outfits. Like this is a perfect product for her on stage. So I was trying to figure out how to get it to her. My background in fashion, it's so hard to get a celebrity's PR information or their managers. And we had done this before, we tried to send to celebrities and it just sits at their agent's house or their office. So I was like, there has to be a better, like, warm intro way of getting tailored product. And from my fashion experience, I know that makeup artists always love free things. And I was like, maybe Taylor works with like, a few makeup artists. So I looked them up and she works with one, Lori Turk. She had an agent. I reached out to her agency. They gave me her mailing address, which like I was shook,
Yeah,
like
that's
that they
interesting.
would even give me that information. I sent her product in May and that was it. And I actually documented this all on my personal TikTok of it was my mission to get our product on Taylor Swift. I was like, all right, you know what? If it's not Taylor, Sabrina Carpenter is opening for her. Let's get on Sabrina Carpenter. She's more up and coming. Maybe she would be more receptive to receiving products. Send it to her team. Then I was like, okay, if she's still dating Travis by the fall, why don't I give it to all the wags, like the wives and girlfriends of the Chiefs, and she'll see it all in the VIP box, like around her. Like we need to get phase it all around Taylor Swift.
And how are you like getting it in their hands, like DMing them, like
DMing them, emailing them, like whatever, like the art of the cold email. Um, so October 7th rolls around. I have no prior information that she is going to wear a product. And I come home from working out and I look at my phone and a content creator messages the Phase It Beauty account is like, I think Taylor's wearing glitter freckles to the Chiefs game. And I'm like looking at this like no, there's like no possible way. And then I like go on my Instagram Explore page and it is covered in close-up pictures of Taylor's face. And it was Dave Portnoy at Barstool Sports, page 6, Perez Hilton. Everyone is reporting Taylor Swift is wearing glitter freckles and like
wow.
unclear what a glitter freckle is.
Yeah.
And I turned the TV on. My husband is a major football fan. She's walking into Arrowhead Stadium doing like her whole catwalk in her Vivienne Westwood outfit and in glitter freckles. And I just started crying. And my husband starts filming me. And I think he's been around the whole journey of the ups and downs of the business. And I think he just knew this was like such a moment to capture. And people have always asked me, like, why did you cry in that moment? It's
Oh
just
my
like
gosh.
I mean, like a lot of reasons, but I think the main one was as someone who's now been an entrepreneur for 7 years, is like, oh, I know what's about to happen next.
Ah,
Like
I have
this is
goosebumps.
this is my catalyst. And I Didn't sleep for 2 weeks. I was up that whole night. My brother-in-law came over. My husband was making Reddit and Twitter accounts to just like make sure everyone knew it was Phasix. Because at the time it was Glitter Freckles, but they weren't tagging the company. And so I spent all night reaching out to journalists saying you need to tag our company in this in your posts. And the next morning, I get a call from CBS News, and they're like, "Can you come down to our studio? We want to interview you." 2 days later, NBC is setting up in my apartment a whole set, and they're doing a documentary called The Swift Effect. And I'm on episode 2 about how Taylor has impacted businesses and kind of like this intersection between fashion, beauty, and sports. So, we did 7 figures in 48 hours. Nina was on top of operations, making sure we never sold out at any point, which I think like a lot of brands, it's like a pat on the back to sell out, and that's super buzzy. But for us, we have the Eras tour in 2 weeks starting in North America, and we have Halloween in 3 weeks. We need to make sure that everyone gets their glitter freckles before this. And then a few weeks later, we're both at the Eras tour, and I looked around the stadium of 80,000 people, and I would say 1 in 3 women were wearing our
Oh
product.
my gosh.
And like, I mean, it's so emotional.
I can't even, I mean, I have like full body goosebumps and I've already heard this story and you saying it. I'm just like you said, 7 years of being an entrepreneur, you hit that moment, like all those tough moments, those late nights, like those challenges, those rejections. You're like, it was worth going through all of it for this. It's like all the hard work. Like people might look at you and be like, oh, you're so lucky that Taylor put it on there. It's like, no, there's so much that went into your journey and the timing worked out because you put forth all that effort to do everything. And then you finally got the product that was like the right product market fit for her.
No, we had obviously a lot of these outlets who know nothing about our story, and I can't blame them. But they're like, "Oh, the overnight success," and we're obviously not overnight successes. We really had the foundation led in order to keep up with this. And what's funny in the episode I was in on NBC, The Swift Effect, Perez Hilton makes a comment right after my interview saying, "These girls, like Taylor wore their product, but like we completely marketed it and like used her for as long as possible in order to get the business where we wanted to." And I remember in those first 12 hours, I called a female founder who has one of the top brands at Sephora. And I said, "What, like, am I missing something? Like, what? I think I'm doing everything right, but like, is there something I'm missing that I need to do?" And she was like, "Have you hired a publicist?" And I said, "Already done." She's like, "Okay, great." She's like, "You use this to leverage the retailer of your dreams." She's like, "You have all the power right now." She's like, "Whatever you want, you go out and ask for it."
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And this female founder that you mentioned is big in, a large retailer. Was she a friend? Did you also cold reach out to her?
We have mutual investors and advisors, and she actually was the assistant to one of our investors and advisors back at Estee Lauder back in the day. We had dinner once before and really like had a really transparent conversation about like the emotions behind being a founder. And I just texted her one morning. I was like, "Can you talk real quick?" She's like, "Yep." So I was like getting my hair and makeup done for the documentary, and I was just like, "What do I do?" And I mean, she was so kind to like share, and she was like, "This too shall
Yeah.
pass." She was like,
Yeah.
"This is
Yeah.
not going to be forever. So you need to do whatever you guys can do to sustain the momentum."
There's so much I love about that. I love that you also like reach out to someone just to get feedback like that. Like, outside of just the marketing, the strategy of you cold outreach and like you did the same, you're like, this is a moment. Who can I ask who's been there before to take advantage of what's going on? Because again, like this is your first time going through it. So I'm just sharing that, encourage people to like reach out to people, DM someone, text that friend. And surprisingly, like like they are game to hop on the phone. Like I actually had this woman on the podcast. We became friends, gosh, maybe 3 years ago. We were doing something that her business did. I haven't talked to her in so long, and I texted her similar to you, and she's like, "Yeah, let's hop on the phone." I'm like, "You're so kind." So, it's people will go out of their way to support you. So I am curious, obviously there's challenges that comes with that. What were some of the challenges that can come with just such intense growth? Because there are people who, like you said, they sell out, they can even go out of business because it's just so taxing. They don't have that foundation. So maybe it's all wonderful that,
Yeah.
business is growing, but what were some of the challenges there?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still trying to figure it out of like how to scale and like what to do next. is, all learning lesson to us. And I don't think anyone, like, you realize, like, once you start a business is you can ask for advice, but like no one knows your business better than you do. And like nobody has like a roadmap to follow. So still trying to figure it out. But I think for us was like really making sure we had like operations handled and made sure we could produce enough inventory for the demand that we were meeting. We were also going into the holidays. I think the second was, who do we bring on next? Like,
Yeah.
we need help. Like, it was Nina and I, and luckily we had people working for us part time and subcontractors that came in more as a full position. And I think really just like, projecting what does the future look like how much cash do you have now, looking at that 3 6 months. And the best piece, I think, of feedback I'd received, which comes off negative, but really has stayed in my head, is my husband's uncle, who is an amazing CEO and founder. And he said, "What's next?" He's like, "You got to have the next product ready to go, like, or else this dies." And I don't know if it does die, but he was right. Like, the media cycle works so fast, and people, they get bored of something really quickly these days. So really making sure we were on top of cultural moments, collaborating with the right brands, and really working on product development and innovation for what's next for Fazit.
Got it. Yeah, that is a good point. Like, how long does that media hit, the media cycle kind of work with sales? And what were you guys doing to lengthen it?
We call ourselves occasion wear. And for us, there's always an occasion, right? It can be a girls' night out, a bachelorette, a holiday. There's always something to look forward to. So lucky enough for us, it was Eras Tour, Halloween. Now we're going into the holidays and New Year's. And that was massive for us. But then it was, what's next? And for us, I always knew that sports and female found fandom was really important. The product that we sell is long lasting, waterproof, sweatproof, and a really cute way to like show up for your team. And I think Taylor Swift connected the dots for female fans of like, I can show team spirit and still look pretty and not be wearing like an ill fitted, ugly jersey in order to like show up for my team or like to go to a game with my partner. So that has become a really big strategy for us. So we did a lot around football season with the NFL, Super Bowl. We did a collab with Build-A-Bear around the Chiefs. So really making sure we, are at those key moments in culture. And, the last 2 months has been obviously Super Bowl, but then Valentine's Day, planning for festival season. We have a massive collab announcement we're launching in the next 3 weeks. That's really exciting. And announcing new categories.
I love it. You guys are busy over there doing all sorts of things. And I know we're coming up on time right here, but I want to end on one last question, and something I could talk about for so long, but manifestation, I know that's big for you. And you've kind of mentioned a few things and revenue targets where your fiance is like, I don't know about that, or at your, fiance at the time, now husband. Tell me more about, how has manifestation kind of played a role in just your success in business?
Yeah, I think like looking back to like being a kid, I remember my mom took me to a vision board class, and
Amazing.
you're cutting out things of your future. I think I still have it in my childhood closet. But I remember looking at it and being like, "Oh, whoa, all those things happened. Like, that's wild." So it was important to Nina and I. We do this the beginning of every single year, even when we started the company, of like, what are our short, medium, and long-term milestones that we want to hit? What are our goals? And I do this for my personal life as an entrepreneur, like as Aliett, and I do this for, a leader at Fazit. And I did this last year. I remember I was at my friend's wedding in Utah. I stepped aside one of the mornings and I was like, you know what, like this is such a beautiful place. I'm just gonna like sit down. I'm gonna like I don't meditate. I just haven't gotten there yet. But I just was alone with my thoughts for a minute. And then when I opened my eyes, I wrote everything that just came to mind first. Like I didn't want to overthink it. Like it should just feel very natural of like, what do I actually envision for the next year? And it was landing a big retailer account. It was hitting $1 million in revenue, and so on and so forth. And I remember I took an interview with Beauty Independent about a year ago, and they asked me what our revenue goals were going to be. To be completely frank, we did about $150,000 our first year of business. And I said we were going to do $3 million for 2024. And my fiance looked at me and was like, who are you lying to? And one of our good friends who actually introduced us and is an investor at Fazit was just like, "You're gonna do $3 million?" He's like, "Sick." Um, we completely surpassed that this year.
Oh my God, amazing.
We did that in, the 48 hours of Taylor Swift. We
Insane.
landed that big retail account, but moving forward, still really important of like, no dream is too wild. You just like, you put that out into the universe and you write it down. Cause I think as soon as you put it on paper or you say it out loud, like it becomes real.
I love that. I love what you said. Like, no dream is too big. Like, you just saying that, I'm like, gosh, it's just so important to think big. Cause even myself, I'm like, how can I even think bigger? I have to challenge myself in
Yeah.
those moments because, like you said, you never know what's possible. Like, so I love your story. So inspiring. I mean, I love everything you guys are up to. So glad you're able to join us here. This was a blast and appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. You're a fantastic interviewer.